Hi, I'm Katie Hess, the seed manager here at Liquid Grow. Thanks for joining us on the first part of our 4-part mini-series called Till the Rows Close. So we're going to be walking through some inputs that we can add to your management strategies until the rows close over the next 4 parts. And today we are actually in a shed because the farmer is done planting already here on May 6th. And Jake, that's just something we have not seen for a few years. You know, we're used to these long, drawn-out, delayed springs due to wet weather. So can you talk a little bit more about what we just came off of here on the planting season?
Yeah, Katie. So we have had in general, a very good very good planting conditions, and we've planted the crop very rapidly here in eastern Iowa and northwest Illinois. We've had unseasonably warm weather over the last couple of weeks, which has led to good planting conditions and generally rapid emergence. And to be holding almost V1 corn on May 6th is almost unheard of. So we've had good conditions so far.
Jake, you know, with these wet, delayed springs we've had in the past, we talk a lot about seedling diseases. Clearly, we're not going to be talking about seedling diseases this year because, well, it's not wet and cold. But can you talk a little bit more about these hard soils that we've been planting into and how that affects your depth?
Yeah, Katie, that's right. So in 2021, because we've been fairly dry or really dry, we're not going to have seedling disease issues. We're not going to have slow emergence due to cold, wet soils, and we're not going to have inhibitional chilling injury, right? So because we're not going to have all that, we're in a pretty good place. But the one thing that I think could cause some unevenness in this crop is dry soil conditions, all right? And really, there's two things we think about when we think about dry soils. We think about soils that tend to be a little firmer or are harder than normal, which means we might not be able to get the planting depth we thought we were going to get. The second thing would be is that when we have drier soils, we need to plant a little bit deeper to make sure we get all those plants in good moisture, all right? So if we think about hard, dry soils and the fact that some of those soils could have been a little bit drier on top, we think about uneven stands due to not getting all those plants put in good moisture, all right?
And you've mentioned in the past that we want these plants to emerge between 24 to 48 hours. Otherwise, bottom line, we start to create weeds out of these corn plants.
Right.
So how can we tell on these plants that you've got here what the planting depth was on them?
Yeah, so if you do have a situation where you believe you have a little more uneven emergence than you'd like, really what you need to do is you can start digging up plants, and you need to measure the distance between you really need to measure the distance of the mesocotyl, okay? And when plants are this small, it's pretty tough to tell what the mesocotyl is exactly, but there's going to be a little bulge in the bottom of the stem there, and that bulge is that would be the crown, or where the growing point is. So you measure from the crown there down to where the seed is itself, and that's the mesocotyl length, all right? So you measure that length, and then you add 3/4 of an inch. So this mesocotyl length is approximately 1.25 inches. So if you add 3/4 of an inch, that means these plants were planted 2 inches deep, which is almost perfect.
Great to know that, Jake. One other thing I want to ask you while we're here is, you know, we're standing in front of this nice tractor and planter set up here.
It is a nice tractor.
What do you think's running through these tanks, and do you happen to know?
Yeah, I know what's running through the tanks on this tractor. So this great customer of ours, he applied our premium starter, out of furrow nitrogen starter, which is called 18333. So yeah, he applied starter with this a planter, and I suspect here in a couple of weeks he's going to have a marvelous looking corn crop because of that.
Thanks, Jake, for pointing that out to us. Just for the folks at home here, what do you think we're going to talk about next time on our part 2 of our series of Till the Rows Close?
Yeah, so we're going to talk about some herbicide considerations in corn relative to the dry weather, and what the dry weather could mean for the activity of some of our pre-emergent herbicides.
And then I think on top of that, you're going to talk about
Talk about some soybean herbicide
Soybean.
management considerations, and then we're going to end it with some very good points about side dressing corn.
right, with side dressing corn with the markets the way they are, we probably need to talk about adding those inputs to maximize our yields.
We need to talk about when and where it's important, that's for sure.
Well, thank you for joining us today on our first part of our 4-part series. Hopefully you can join in the rest of them too.